Good afternoon. Welcome to the July meeting of Cabinet at South Kesteven District Council. It's now almost 2:10. We have had a couple of, I'd say, administrative issues or IT issues, whichever you prefer, but it's not yet 1:15, so we are well core and on time. I'm Ashley Baxter. I'm the leader of the council and chairman of this committee. I have alongside me, to my left, the deputy leader and vice chairman, Councillor Paul Stokes. To my right, I have Karen Bradford, our chief executive, and Alison Hall-Wright, our deputy monitoring officer. Please turn your phases to stun and your phones to silent. I've not been notified of a fire alarm practice, so if the alarm sounds, either go back through the door you came in or through the door marked fire exit and assemble on St Peter's Green outside this building and await further instructions. If you wish to ask a question, please indicate by raising your hand. The meeting is being broadcast as a live stream via the SKDC Public Eye website. Recordings can be viewed at a later date on the Public Eye website or by the SKDC YouTube channel. Please be aware that budget carry forwards was published as a supplement to the agenda. This is the right time to say that from October we plan to alter the regular time of these meetings from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So the Cabinet has been at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon for a long time. We hope to change it to a 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon from October onwards. And this will be the last Cabinet meeting before summer. And because it's nearly summer, I don't know if you need my permission, but if you wish to take your jackets off, gentlemen, or take anything off, anybody, feel free, go ahead. Don't cause a disturbance. So moving on to the agenda. Open forum. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak? No. I do have a written question about one of the agenda items, which I hope to be able to find by the time that item comes up, about the issue of pesticides. But if I have no public speakers, I will move on to apologies for absence. I believe we're all here, so I have no apologies for absence. And welcome, I should say, to the 7 members of the council who are not on cabinet but have chosen to come to these meetings anyway. You're very welcome. Disclosures of interest. Does anybody have any? We have none. Minutes of the previous meeting. Would somebody like to either comment on the minutes or preferably suggest they are a true and accurate record of the previous meeting held on the 3rd of June 2025? Thank you, Councillor Knowles. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Moran. All those in favour of accepting the minutes? That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to the first agenda item proper, the Wharf Road multi-storey car park Grantham Phase 1 maintenance works. Councillor Cleaver, would you please walk us through this issue?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to run through it as we've got quite a packed agenda today. Members of the Cabinet and members of the Council will be already familiar with the fact that we have a lot of backlog maintenance on this car park, which we need to sort out, and we have already started work on that. We have done a very, very thorough set of surveys on this car park, as we have done since taking office 2 years ago on all our buildings, and as a result we have a programme of works to put forward and to get moving on as soon as we possibly can. That evaluates to around £830,000 worth of work, so we have inherited quite a backlog. This is a first set of works which we need to approve today to move forward with the first phase, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cleaver. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Stokes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I certainly agree that the works are 100% needed. Just one thing that doesn't come over totally clear, or I may have missed in the report, is the consultant, which I believe is Pick Everard, are they designing the works, or are they just doing the quantity surveying?
I'll let Mr. Wiles or Mr. Giles respond to that, please.
Mr. Wiles, please.
No, I'll pick that up if you like. So we work with Pick Everard, who are our consultants on the design. They've drawn together the programme of works over the next up to 10 years across the whole car park. We've liaised with the landlord who are using Savills for their building surveying consultancy and agreed that programme of works. So the design is by Pick Everard essentially in terms of what works are required. We've had various subcontractors come and carry out sampling of the surfacing and the structure and makeup of that surface to make sure the works are accurate and fit for purpose essentially, and what we'll then proposing to bring forward over the next 10 years.
Councillor Stokes.
Sorry, just to push you a little bit further. That's absolutely great. Can I just be assured that they've designed the joints?
So, yeah, they've had structural engineer consultation on those joints and have advised that there's actually been a saving in the scope to change the makeup of the surface based on what's being laid down with the asphalt rather than the previous surfacing which has failed.
Thank you. Is that satisfactory? Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I'm assuming it'll be minimal because of the 2 hours free parking we have there, but do we have an estimated total of the income loss during the works, and how will it be monitored and reported? And then do we run a risk of weakening our negotiating position by repairing this? I realise that we've got obligations, but are we weakening our negotiation position moving forward by doing these repairs now?
Councillor Cleaver, would you like to respond?
Thank you. I haven't got a figure for projected lost income. I presume that as we are only closing part of the car park, and it is very rarely at beyond 50% capacity at any point, that there will be no loss of revenue, because I think at least 2 decks will remain open for the whole time that these works are going on. But I'll ask Mr. Wiles to comment on that. But I mean, this is in the context of a 30% increase in usage. So, you know, we know that the car park is being used more because of the 1 or 2 hours free parking that we've offered there. And so it means that it is very much worthwhile us improving this car park and getting it back up to spec. Pardon me, I don't think there is any question about weakening our negotiating position, because these works have to be done. We are contractually obliged to do them.
Thank you. Do you wish to add anything, Mr. Wiles or Giles?
Yeah, I'd just say kind of the latest utilisation confirms it's still operating at about 50% capacity. We have seen an uptick on the response to the free parking that was introduced in January, but it is still operating at a very low capacity level. So there will be some disruptions to some of the levels, but we're confident that that demand can be accommodated on the levels that will remain open. We are still working with the contractor as to how the mobilisation of the works will be undertaken and the phasing of those works, but the car park will remain open during the period, but any disruption to the upper levels will be accommodated on levels 1 and 2. Thank you.
Thank you. I might be out of order here, but is the car park going to shut completely at any point, and if so, for how long?
There will be some closure of the car park. We're looking to close only levels 3 and 1 mainly, but until we have the programme of works from the contractor, we can't commit to exactly full closure timescales yet, but we'll mitigate obviously as much as possible.
Smashing. Thank you. Right, so we're being asked to approve the award of a contract to Rio Asphalt and Paving Company Limited to a value of £283,305 and 14 pence plus VAT for essential maintenance. Would anyone like? I'm assuming that you've proposed this, Councillor Cleaver. Would anyone like to second? Thank you, Councillor Baker. All those in favour? Thank you. That was unanimous? That was unanimous, yes. Great, thanks. So, moving on to the next item, Agenda 6, which is the contract award for structural surveying and associated works in the hands of Councillor Moran, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks approval from Cabinet to enter into a contract with Millward Partnership for the provision of structural surveys and associated works to council-owned dwellings owned by SKDC. Structural surveys enable building defects to be investigated and remedial work identified. Approximately 45 structural surveys and 12 associated projects are carried out each year. The cost of these surveys will be met from the structural survey part of the HRA revenue budget, and any associated projects will be funded by the HRA capital budget. The procurement opportunity was tendered as a mini competition using a framework run by Efficiency East Midlands. 4 bids were received, which were evaluated based on 60% quality and 40% price. The overall score for Millward Partnership was 94%, compared to bidders 2, 3 and 4, whose scores range from 79.71 to 59.71. It's therefore recommended that the contract is awarded to Millward Partnership. So I would ask that Cabinet approves the recommendation that the award of a contract to Millward Partnership for the provision of carrying out structural surveys and associated works at South Kesteven District Council owned dwellings with an annual value of £50,000 for a period of 3 years with the option to extend annually for up to a further 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any Cabinet members have any questions or comments on this report? Do any other members of the Council have any questions? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you again, Chair. Just a couple of questions, really. If the contractor's performance falls below what we expect, because we're looking at 45 surveys and 12 associated projects, etc., I'm assuming we do have the mechanisms in place to address that within that 3 to 5 year term, should they fall short.
Would you like to answer this question, or would you like to answer this question? Oh, sorry, Mark. Mark, would you like to answer this question, Mark?
Yeah, thank you for that question. All of our contracts will be signed and agreed, and there will be performance clauses within those, which we will follow through in line with the contract if there are any issues of non-performance. Also to say that there will be dedicated staff who are trained in contract management who will look after these contracts.
Is that satisfactory? Good. Thank you. Right, would anyone like to second this proposal? Thank you, Councillor Stokes. Are all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 7 is contract award for gas and electrical auditing. It should be noted that at one stage the accompanying report was classified on pink paper. That is now in the public domain, I believe, suitably redacted so as to protect the innocent. So, Councillor Moran, would you like to introduce this, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The report seeks approval from Cabinet to enter into a contract with Morgan Lambert. This is for the provision of gas and electrical auditing to council-owned dwellings. Audits are undertaken on a sample of the gas and electrical works that are completed each month to provide assurance regarding the quality of the works. it's somewhere in the region, I think it's something in the region of about 10%, roughly, chosen at random. The procurement opportunity was tendered as a mini competition using a framework run by Efficiency East Midlands. We only received 2 bids, but these were evaluated on the usual 60% quality and 40% price. The overall score for Morgan Lambert was 94%. Bidder 2 was awarded a score of just under 72%. It's therefore recommended that the contract is awarded to Morgan Lambert. So I'd like the Cabinet to approve the recommendation that the award of a contract to Morgan Lambert for the provision of carrying out gas and electrical auditing in SKDC's own dwellings with an annual value of £50,000 for a period of 3 years, with the option to extend annually for up to a further 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. It should be noted that this is for gas and electrical auditing, not to be confused with gas and electrical inspections. As we know, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, before the Chief Executive arrived, the current Chief Executive arrived, our performance on gas and electrical inspections was lamentable. It's now up to 99.82% correct, I believe, with some households being taken to court in order that we can get access to ensure the safety of the people who are trying to deny us access to properties that we own. But without going down that tenuous aside, do we have any questions about the contract award for gas and electrical auditing? Councillor Stokes.
Yeah, so just for clarity, the gas and electrical works are self-certification when the gas and electrical people finish, and I presume this is an audit to check that they're not certifying works that are absolutely right when they're not, and it's just a belt and braces measure of checking out what's been certified by the operator in the first place.
Yes, it's just a way of checking our homework, really. We like to do it with most things that we do, just to make sure that everything's running accordingly, and we'd rather not check our own homework.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? If not, then I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Stokes, all those in favour, please. That is unanimous once again. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8. This concerns local government reorganisation, which is well rehearsed in this chamber, but other people further beyond this chamber might not be as either aware or up to date with the ever-changing circumstances around local government reorganisation in the UK, and specifically in Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, Rutland and the surrounding areas. So here is a report carefully put together by Charles James under the watchful eye of Karen Bradford and colleagues, and let me introduce you to it. A feedback letter from the MHCLG, the Ministry of Housing, Community and Local Government, was received regarding our interim LGR proposal, LGR meaning Local Government Reorganisation. It was received on the 3rd of June. In-person feedback was received from senior MHCLG officials on the 2nd and the 4th of July 2025, that's last week. Feedback in both instances was general to the Greater Lincolnshire area and provided guidance to assist in the development of final proposals. MHCLG did not indicate a view on the merits or specific features of the interim proposals submitted in March 2025. Although, frankly, in my opinion, it would have been most helpful for the government to express an opinion as to whether or not particular proposals were acceptable, tolerable, workable, which would have reduced the amount of effort that the numbers of council officers and members are putting into this across the county. However, in their wisdom, they didn't comment on the merits of specific features, so none of the proposals have been ruled out at this stage. Neither did the Ministry rule out the inclusion of Rutland County Council into the Greater Lincolnshire LGR proposals. Proposals that include Rutland will need to set out a clear rationale for doing so and consider the full implications for both Greater Lincolnshire and Leicestershire. The Ministry have confirmed the position that, quote, population size of 500,000 or more is a guiding principle, not a strict target, and that the criteria are not weighted. Decisions on the most appropriate option for each area will be judgments in the round, having regard to the guidance and the available evidence. The Ministry have allocated £357,426 to Greater Lincolnshire to support the final proposal development. Lincolnshire Chief Executives have agreed that the funding will be used for the collective commissioning of data modelling and a shared financial baseline. The Council will continue to work collaboratively with anyone who wants to collaborate to develop a full proposal for LGR that is most beneficial, short, medium and long term, for the residents and businesses of South Kesteven and the wider geography of Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland. While seeking to minimise the costs of the full proposal development and to use existing internal resources wherever possible, the Council recognises that there are some elements where external expertise and support will add value. This includes financial modelling of the proposal costs and financial benefits, independent resident engagement, and validating approaches for critical top-tier services such as children's services, adult social care. Therefore, approval is sought from Cabinet for £75,000 from the Local Priorities Reserve to be set aside to support the development of the final proposal. This equates to less than £1 per household across the district and roughly 50 pence per person across the district. The Council remains committed to continuing to deliver business as usual, providing services to our residents and businesses, and investing in our operational and community assets in line with existing strategies to ensure the best possible outcomes for the residents of South Kesteven. To add to that, I'd say that the Chief Executive, Councillor Dilks and myself all all attended the Local Government Association conference last week. A lot of the talk was around local government reorganisation and how it might play out. We spoke to other leaders and chief executives and councillors and officers from across Lincolnshire and also from across the country. We talked in our political groups and also in wider circumstances around the issues around local government. We were given a presentation from both Angela Rayner and Jim McMahon, so we were slightly better educated, and so if this report was written again today, it would be very slightly different to how it is written in front of you. However, the fundamentals haven't changed. We still don't have very clear guidance on how the guidance is to be reinterpreted, and I continue to speak to my colleagues, particularly colleagues in North Kesteven, South Holland and Rutland, but also across Greater Lincolnshire, towards the best, most plausible, most practical outcome for the benefit of our residents. So with that, I'll open the floor and ask Councillor Dilks, you had your hand up first.
Thank you very much, Leader. First, I'd like to thank you as Leader and our Chief Executive, Karen, Charles James and the whole team, frankly, for the excellent work in difficult circumstances that you've done so far on this project. I wholly support the recommendations that are before us today and the report that you presented. We're faced with proposals for the biggest reorganisation of local government in half a century. We all know that. Both tiers, existing tiers of local government serving this area, which were created in 1974, including all 7 district councils across Lincolnshire and the county council, are to be abolished. And I speak as a double hatter, as you are, elected to both of those authorities, and have been involved, as you say, with discussions up at Lincoln and here, and as you say, at the LGA last week. As elected members of South Kesteven, I think we all have a responsibility to get the best outcome for the 145,000 residents of South Kesteven we are privileged to represent today. I believe it's our duty to do our level best to protect democracy as far as possible and to work to keep the services we provide and the decisions we make as close to as possible to the residents whose lives they affect, and not turn devolution on its head, rather than allowing the huge democratic deficit that I believe would result if we allow ourselves to be swallowed up into a gigantic authority of 750,000 residents across existing Lincolnshire. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Dilks. Do we have any other comments from Cabinet first? If not, then I'll happily go to Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Chairman. As I see in SK today, you're still in favour with North Kesteven, South Kesteven, South Holland and Rutland joining together. Yet Rutland earlier in the year stated they would be looking at Leicestershire. Is South Holland, North Kesteven wanting Rutland to be in the cohort? Is Rutland looking to complete their own business plan to join us? And will the government really actually look at this work? I do have concerns, and it is a large amount of money, but I would like to thank the officers that are working on this, because you can't have a faint heart doing it, I dare say. But thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with your comment about the faint heart, and I would prefer to be spending nothing at all on it. I don't think the system is broke, but we've been told that it needs fixing. So if we, fortune favours the brave. It maybe is worth commenting that the £75,000 is only half what South Holland and East Lindsey have put into the pot to put together their bid. It shouldn't be a bidding war based on the amount of funding that is being put into the kitty. It should be based on the genuine practicalities and reasons for putting the authorities together. Going back to your question about Rutland, we continue to speak to Rutland. I had a coffee with Gail Waller from Rutland last week. I continue to correspond with Alicia Cairns, the MP for Rutland and Stamford. The MP for Rutland and Stamford, you'll be not surprised to know, is keen that Rutland and Stamford remain together local authority-wise. I think, which is probably true in South Kesteven, but to a lesser extent than at Rutland Council are not of one mind as to where the best place for them to be in terms of local government reorganisation is, although I think they probably are of one mind that Rutland should retain its ceremonial status and its claim to be the smallest county in England and the UK. No?
The Isles of Scilly are the smallest local authority in the UK.
I beg your pardon. Thank you for that clarification. Yes, Rutland is a small... Sarah, you've turned your mic on. With the possible exception of the Isle of Scilly, the Rutland is the smallest county and long may it continue. However, administratively, I am unashamedly saying that we would prefer Rutland to continue to be part of Stamford, as somebody mentioned earlier in the day. Do we have... Sarah, you did have a question.
Yeah, apologies, Mr. Chairman, the computer slid over. I have, one question and also something that I just want to run past you. Okay, so I did pick up that you said this is the best outcome for residents. I do have to question that, being in Lincolnshire. I know it's a bit going over old ground, but I do not know how our plans will work with Leicestershire, who obviously have their own police services, ambulance services, to name a few. So I don't know how it can be of the interest of Lincolnshire, and obviously we will always have Lincolnshire Police ambulance services at Stamford. Leicestershire won't be coming over the line. So if this goes ahead and we continue to pursue including Rutland, I do seem to remember not so long ago your opposition to us using very expensive consultants. I know that you say it's half the cost, they're not particularly expensive, but it is a cost. Why can we not do without this 75,000 to use consultants? Can we not do this ourselves and save the residents some money?
I understand your questions. Sorry, forgive me. I'll have to go back to the first one, and I've dealt with the second one. About the consultants, I mean, we're not touching the sides in terms of previous expenditure by SKDC on consultants. You will remember that we used to pay a marketing consultant £12,000 a month for advice on communication, and our current communications officers don't get anything like what they. Be careful with my words. I don't think Chris is paid £144,000 a year, are you? No. But it comes at a cost, and some of the work that we're being asked to do is quite specialist, and so we're trying to align our numbers with the numbers being presented by everybody else. Some of the data sharing isn't what it should be, although all authorities in principle have said that they're prepared to do data sharing. There's data sharing, and I think the Chief Executive might want to make a couple of comments about that. You'll have to remind me of the first bit. Was it about the fire service and the health service of Rutland? Yeah, the fire services and the health services are not aligned across the county at the moment. We have, within the existing county of Lincolnshire, Greater Lincolnshire, we have two different police authorities, and then health, it kind of depends which way you look as to where you are, because I know that Peterborough and Stamford hospitals work together, and I get lost as to how the different practices work together. Angela Rayner made a comment about schools being part of our outcomes, even though we as local authorities have less impact than we ever did on schools because we're all being academised. And if it is genuine local government reorganisation for the betterment of the people that live in these authorities, then we shouldn't be ruling anything out based on previous. So, having said we should reorganise in the best interests of what's best for Lincolnshire and everywhere else, we shouldn't then limit it by saying, oh, well, hang on, it doesn't fit in conveniently with the fire or the health or wherever else. So, I understand your concerns, but there are certainly people. I think as you get further south in the district, the warmth towards Rutland is stronger. As probably in the North Kesteven, as you get further towards Lincoln, probably people in North Highcombe would think, oh, that sounds great being in with Lincoln, because I live in Lincoln anyway. But when you get to the Sleaford end of North Kesteven, I would think they're less warm towards Lincoln. Currently, there are 4 possible options, we think, which are our bid, the eastern bid of East Lindsey and South Holland, what we call the Lincoln Donut, and I'm allowed to call it that, aren't I? Yes. The Lincoln with the surrounding rural area, and then the Greater Lincolnshire bid, which I think Phil has outlined. And if we're talking about reorganisation, bringing power closer to the people it's meant to serve, as somebody who has to go to Lincoln on a regular basis, Lincoln is too far away. Chief Executive, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Leader. Just to probably help with the debate, the Leader and I have spoken this morning about putting some additional member briefings on for what came out of last week at the conference, and information that we want to regularly share with you and keep you up to date with information. So please note that to date and sometimes will be coming out once we've set those in the diary, because I think that this debate needs to happen even more as things develop. As the leader has said, the information from MHCLG last week was that the PCC and fire authorities do not have to align at this stage. They would like to see them, the wording that they used was coterminous, but if the coterminous future looks good into many years ahead, then that's okay, but we'd have to cover that within the report. So e.g. if the whole of Lincolnshire came together, Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland, you'd have three different police authorities, although the leader of the Met actually went for 12 mega authorities, didn't he, in the press at the weekend, so who knows what's happening with police reorganisation. Again, with the fire authority, we're looking at 3 covering Rutland, Lincolnshire and Greater Lincolnshire at the moment, and what can happen there is, because the county council is responsible for the fire and rescue service, they are the administrative body, that can actually move to a different authority. So it's happened in other areas where the fire authority has actually moved under the control of the Police and Crime Commissioner. That's happened in other areas, so it's not broken up and disaggregated. It's actually moved to a different organisation to actually lead and manage. So there's lots of different models to do with policing and with fire. In reference to the consultants' reports, we've had a consultants' report shared with us, Charles has chaired today, on adult social care, which is one of the areas that we're actually unpicking, and there will be another DCM report on children's services as well, and lifting the lid on children's services so we understand about regional responsibilities on children's services and the extent. So there is work ongoing, but we will need some specialist advice to help us, certainly around adults and children's, not so much on the financial modelling and the data collection, because that will be funded through the government's award of grant. So I think it's best that we kind of get into those detailed debates in a briefing to help understanding and share information as much as possible. But we won't be spending money just to appoint consultants, believe me. It's to kind of keep it to the minimum as much as we can to develop up our own proposals for the 28th of November.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. As a double hat, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the Chief Exec and Charles and the team for the engagement they've done with parish and town councils. It's definitely opened a few people's eyes up on this. But my query is, in this 75,000 budget that we've got there, will any of that be used to consult with local businesses and residents? Because obviously before November I'd like to see something done with that as well.
Just for clarification, we're not allowed to consult as part of the local government principles, but we can engage. There is a difference because, of course, consultation has different principles in law. We can't consult, it's only that the government can consult on proposals put forward. What we will be looking to do is engage with the business community. We've got one more parish council session to run in Stamford, 22nd of July, and we have committed, the leader and myself have committed to doing another round of parish and town council briefings. We also have discussed, the leaders have discussed doing a level of engagement across a certain area around proposals between now and November, although we need to put some meat on those bones yet about what the structure and framework that will be. But the leaders spoke about that at the meeting last week in Liverpool, so we'll be doing some work around the engagement plan over the next few weeks.
Thank you, and thank you, Tim, for recognising the kind of the time and effort that we've put into engaging the parish councils, at least parish and town councils at least. Engagement, consultation, tomato. I want people to understand what's happening to us and them, and to be able to engage in a way that we get a clear answer of what people, businesses, community members, residents want, rather than just what my personal preference is or your personal preference is. For goodness sake, don't let the politicians make the decisions by themselves. Although when it comes down to it, it will be Jim McMahon drawing lines on a map, as he said at the end of it. In terms of engagement, we were keen as Lincolnshire leaders not to want to do 7 separate engagement exercises, or actually if we go over the border to Leicestershire, upwards of 12 or 14 different engagement exercises. We want people to understand the options available. So one option that's not available is keeping South Kesteven as it is at the moment. That's not on the table. So that's the first hurdle in engagement, is explaining to people why it's got to change. Explaining on behalf of the government why it's got to change. And then the next thing is to say, what are the alternatives? So as you knew, or as anybody that attended the briefings discovered, explaining the Lincoln donut idea is kind of, that's 20 minutes in itself. And then explaining the politics of North and North East Lincolnshire and how we got here, it is, and that's just talking about geography. Once you've done the geography, you then go on to talk about the issues of housing stock. We've got 6,000 houses, roughly, and Rutland have got roughly 0. The internal drainage board, sorry, have they got more than 0? Rutland.
What, council housing?
Yes. Yeah, they've got 0. And once you've got internal drainage boards, costs Boston £5 million a year. The internal drainage boards cost us £1 million a year. Rutland, again, don't pay anything for it. There's an awful lot of detail to work out. And so engaging people means informing, educating and engaging. And it will be a struggle, but we do intend to do it in partnership with the other authorities, even if we don't agree on the desired outcome. I hope that answers some of what you asked. Does anybody else have other... Oh, wait, hang on. Can I bring Sarah in first?
It's only a quick one, Chairman. You've just said, you finished up your speech saying, I think the main thing is we want you to listen to the residents. It's quite clear that we, as a council, you're steering towards including Rutland. Ultimately, it's not your choice, it's central government. But just representing the residents as a councillor for my ward, please listen. And if we don't always want to listen. If someone says you're doing something wrong and we want something else, you won't always go that way. I'm waffling, but what I'm trying to say is, please, we just want you to do what the residents want and not so much what you want clearly from yourselves as leader.
Oh yeah, okay, I agree with that entirely. What I haven't heard any residents, so people that aren't councillors or employees of the county council, I haven't heard anybody say that they want a single unitary authority for the whole of existing Lincolnshire. If I was getting questions or emails or responses from people saying, yes, it makes perfect sense for us to be in the same bin collecting authority as Louth and Cleethorpes, then I'd listen to that. But I haven't heard. I've heard people say they're not keen on Rutland, but I haven't heard anyone say that they are keen on West Lindsey or East Lindsey. And so we've also got to bear in mind the targets or the guidelines of £500,000 residences, and it's quite difficult to get there. So I understand what you're saying. If people came back in numbers and said, for example, we don't like Rutland, we do like Boston, or we don't like Rutland, we do like Lincoln, I'd be quite happy to listen to that, as would Cabinet colleagues, I'm sure. Chief Executive.
Thanks. Just to add a few more. Just double checked with the Rutland situation. They don't have any housing stock. They transferred it to a housing association a number of years ago. They had 1,200 houses and have transferred it out, so they don't have a housing stock. Just to make you aware, even though the Greater Lincolnshire leaders met last week and there was representatives of all authorities in the room last week, we have been informed that East Lindsey District Council and South Holland will start their engagement, strategic engagement with people next week. We don't know what that's going to look like, clearly, even though there was an agreement last week. You know, a week in politics is a long time, isn't it? Can I bring Richard in, because Richard was at the SIPFA conference, which was some information to kind of put some of the costs into kind of picture. So Richard was at the SIPFA conference listening to some of the discussions around the financial impact of LGR on certain councils, which is just got a little bit of information to share.
I'm happy to bring Richard in.
I'm happy to be brought in as well.
Thank you, Leader.
I'm glad you're all sat down, because we had Cumbria speak to us, and Cumbria have just gone through a similar journey. So when they went through the implementation of 2 unitaries, so a similar demographic to ourselves, 6 districts and a city council, the implementation reserve that was agreed was £19 million. That was split across all the districts, so they were paying £3 million each. So if we're gulping at 75,000, I would just perhaps brace yourselves for what likely costs could come further down the track. So, and that didn't include the transformation programme, which was £5 million, and it didn't include the redundancy costs, which are borne by each authority. That was a further £5 million. So all in, it was £30 million to create the new unitaries, which was borne by all those concerned. So, yeah, strap yourselves in.
Mr. Wiles, did they say anything about the savings that they made as a result of the...
The savings are strategic and into the future, so they only were formed in 23, so they're only 24 months into their new journey.
Okay, so the payback is yet to be achieved. It's dreadful, isn't it? How depressing. So, on that happy note, does anybody have any further comments about... Oh, Councillor Kesteven.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to come back on a number of issues that were raised, if I may. On the question of engagement, as the Cabinet Member for Public Engagement, I'd like to assure everybody that I will ensure that we do a proper, full public engagement, which is honest and open and accountable. On the issues raised by Councillors Trotter and Crawford, it's great to see Conservative councillors attending today. And I seek assurances from them that the Conservative group will not support the one Lincolnshire unitary option of 780,000 people, which is now the preferred option of Lincolnshire County Council, which of course we haven't mentioned yet. Originally, County Council voted through to pursue 2 different potential options for local government reorganisation, and they have dropped one of them and now are going in favour of a single Lincolnshire unitary within the boundaries of the existing Lincolnshire County Council, and then one unitary, of course, for North and North Lincolnshire combined, North and North East Lincolnshire combined, which needed to be reminded. And in terms of the interest of this council, you know, we are not here to look after the interests of Lincolnshire. We are here to look after the interests of the residents of South Kesteven, who elected us. So, in terms of the issue of is a merger with Rutland good for Lincolnshire, no, it's a question of whether a merger with Rutland is good for the people of South Kesteven. And I would say that in terms of, in response to Sarah Trotter's point, in terms of the other services, the border makes the delivery of those services dysfunctional now. So a merger between SK and Rutland can only make that problem actually easier to solve than it is at the moment. At the moment, it's impossible to solve. I spend a lot of my time as a member for Lincolnshire and for SKDC, whose ward division borders Rutland. A lot of my casework is about problems with people getting services across that boundary. So, you know, abolishing it or making it more logical and fall in a more logical place can only be to the benefit of the people both sides of that current boundary. In terms of why we are continuing to pursue the Rutland question, I would remind everybody that we have a democratic mandate from full council to pursue that course. We had a full debate, and it was overwhelmingly approved that we pursue the option of a single unitary authority with South Holland, North Kesteven and Rutland. And in question that was raised by the Chief Executive about the reason for this expenditure, obviously we can't do this all in-house because we do not have the experience as a lower tier authority in adult services and children's services. And one of the very understandable questions and concerns that people have if LCC is split into smaller units, smaller unitary units, that there is a problem with splitting up what works very effectively at the moment in terms of children's services and adult social care. And I can say that as a county councillor, in 4 years I have a very, very little casework about adult social care and children's services in my division. Very little. In fact, practically nil. So we know that runs really, really well, and we do disturb it at its peril. And therefore, we need to be very clear and put some research and some resources into knowing how we can do that. And therefore, because it's just to repeat myself, because it's an area in which we have little expertise, we need some money. We can't do it in-house. We need to research that particular issue very carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cleaver. Councillor Crawford, did you want to come back?
Yes, just to clarify, I am here not representing the Conservative group today, but my own concerns.
Thank you. You're not saying that you've left the Conservative group?
Oh, definitely not, but I'm here because I have my own concerns and I wanted to raise them with you, and you answered them gallantly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Cleaver, if you wish to know the opinions of the Conservative group or individual independently minded members of the Conservative group, save it for the tea room. This is a meeting for questions to Cabinet. Yes.
Thank you, Thank you, Chairman.
So, without further ado, we are asked to note the latest position, the timing, the approach set out in the for the development of the final business plan, and also to approve the creation of a budget provision of £75,000. Councillor Dilks.
Happy to second your proposal.
Thank you for that. All those in favour? That is once again unanimous. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, colleagues, also from the wider council. Your input is always very welcome. So, moving on to the appointment of a member responsible for housing complaints. With my tongue slightly in my cheek, do I need to ask Councillor Moran to leave at this point, or is this not a issue to worry about? I don't. Okay. Right. Well, if Virginia is offended by anything I say in the next few minutes... So... I beg your pardon?
I think if you wanted to go into a detailed conversation around Councillor Moran, then we would ask Councillor Moran to leave the room and would go into private session. But if there's no detailed discussion other than that Councillor Moran is the Cabinet member, then which is what's recommended by the regulator, then there's no need for her to leave the room.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. This report seeks approval from Cabinet to approve the appointment of a member responsible for housing complaints. The recommendation is that we approve the appointment of Councillor Virginia Moran because she is already the Cabinet member for housing, and so therefore it makes sense for her to be the member responsible for housing complaints. The Housing Ombudsman Complaint Handling Code requires landlords, including us, to appoint a member responsible for complaints. For local authorities, it is recommended this should be a lead member of the Cabinet member responsible for housing. The member responsible for complaints will provide reassurance to the Council regarding the effectiveness of its complaints process, oversee complaint performance, analyse trends and outcomes, and ensure lessons are learned from complaints. The Housing Ombudsman does not recommend having the same person in the role for too long due to the risk of overlooking issues. So it's proposed this role is aligned to the Cabinet member for housing, but should not be for a period longer than 3 years. 3 years, lots can happen in 3 years, can't it? So it is my proposal that we do approve the appointment, but I'm happy to listen to comments and questions, perhaps from Councillor Kesteven.
I'm happy to second, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. My only concern is, as you've already mentioned, the issues of overlooking trends and over familiarity, etc., with the linking of the two roles. So what is the Cabinet considering doing to support our Cabinet member in this? Our Cabinet member has an immense workload as it is, dealing with what she's dealing already, and we're putting this load of work on her as well. Is there going to be support in there with her to help her along on that?
I'm being offered help, so I won't refuse it.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Chairman. Just to help and support Councillor Moran, there is a monthly report that goes to the Stat Officers Group on every complaint that we receive, and we'd also do a lessons learned, and that's from stage 1, stage 2, and member inquiries, housing inquiries. I also once a month sit down and discuss those with the leader of the council. And he looks at those quite diligently, as you can imagine, a little bit of data, which he loves. So we are already got some processes in place to actually support what's happening. Our biggest area of complaints isn't housing anymore. It's certainly reduced a lot more from the work that the team are doing to reduce those complaints and work with residents. So for me, it's very much a positive, the compliments and the complaints that we are receiving. The Ombudsman have passed regulation to make sure that we have somebody in place, but I'm sure Councillor Moran will be seeking the support of the Director of Housing in how those are managed, and it can be a regular part of their one-to-one updates.
Thank you. Councillor Dilks.
Thank you. I note in the report that for local authorities, it's recommended that the member responsible for complaints should be a lead member or a councillor who has oversight in the Cabinet for housing, and it's therefore proposed that Councillor Virginia Moran, as Cabinet member for housing, is appointed. Well, it's a no-brainer. Of course, it should be the Cabinet member for housing, so I support that. I do have one slight question, and it is, what happens if the complaint, or if there is a complaint directly against the Cabinet member for housing?
Such a complaint would be dealt with by me as the leader. Thank you. Would you like to speak? We're all like to. So would you be happy to accept this position, Councillor Moran?
Yes, I would. In answer to Councillor Harrison's, when I first heard it, that, we needed to have this person, ordered by the Ombudsman, I must admit I was a bit dismayed. But when I found out actually how few, touch wood, complaints, Ombudsman complaints there are within housing, it's absolutely minimal, really. Almost single figures at the moment, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. I'm also doing some training, and I booked in yesterday to go to the, I can't remember all the initials now. It's another MH, something else, member responsible, whatever. But I booked in to go to their one-day conference as well. So I'm going to get myself armed to the teeth, and hopefully it goes well. But I do know I've got a really good senior management team who support me all the time anyway, and so I'll happily rely on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Knowles.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm fully in support of this completely. It does seem, though, that a slight anomaly between 2.3 and 2.4. 2.3 says it should be the Cabinet member responsible for housing, and 2.4 says that it should be no longer than 3 years. There may be incompatible suggestions in the course of time.
let's cross that bridge in 2.5 years' time. I just want to say that I think that having an awareness of the kinds of complaints that get as far as the Ombudsman, once you've seen some of the complaints that get to the Ombudsman, that should make you better able to spot the kind of thing that is likely to end up at the Ombudsman at a really early stage and solve it at a much earlier stage. So it should be an iterative process that if something gets as far as the Ombudsman or even to stage 2, that we're better able to manage it at an earlier juncture. So that's great. We've had a proposer and a seconder, so can we go to the vote on this to approve the appointment of Councillor Moran? That's unanimous, except for Councillor Moran, who I assume is abstaining. Yes, great. So 6 in favour, 1 against. Great, good, thanks. We now move to the number of dogs on leads, Public Service Protection Order consultation. Councillor Moran, your name is on this report. Would you like to present it, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the 10th of September last year, it was agreed at the Cabinet meeting to approve an immediate consultation for public spaces protection orders concerning a recommended maximum number of dogs on leads per person. Public spaces protection orders were introduced by the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014 to deal with nuisance or problems in specific areas that are detrimental to the local community's quality of life, by imposing conditions on the use of that area which apply to everyone. They are intended to ensure that the law-abiding majority can use and enjoy public spaces saved from antisocial behaviour. They can apply to any public space, and the definition of public space is wide and includes any place to which the public or any section of the public has access. South Kesteven District Council has several PSPOs across the district, and they can be viewed on the SKDC website. Table 1 of this report lists the PSPOs in existence which are relevant to dog control. Additionally, Table 2 of the report lists the current existing powers available in relation to dog-related complaints, and Table 3 lists the existing powers available to the police. The purpose of this report is to give due consideration to consultation responses received which invited local people, animal welfare organisation and businesses which provide services for dog owners for their opinions on whether there is a need for a PSPO which would limit the number of dogs on leads that one person can walk at the same time. The consultation was carried out between the 27th of November and the 24th of December last year, and in total we received 736 consultation responses. The stakeholders consulted are listed within the report, and there's about 20 pages, I think, which covers the responses received, including those from Lincolnshire Police and the RSPCA. The results of that consultation is included within the report and appendices, but it has demonstrated that there is not broad support regarding the implementation of a PSPO that would limit the number of dogs on leads that one person can walk at the same time. Therefore, it is recommended that no further action is taken currently. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Did you say 736 people involved? This is flooding back to me now. This is the one that Peter Levy was on to me about, isn't it? I had to go and be grilled by Peter Levy about how many dogs I should be allowed. I haven't even got a dog. I'll leave me alone, Peter Levy. Do we have any questions from Cabinet members, comments from other members of Council? Councillor Gadd, please.
Thank you. I think the underlying theme in the consultation was all about professional dog walkers, and that was the major issue that I think has come out in this. And I think they felt that this was going to be an attack on their business, and it wasn't. To be they can be insured. They're insured for up to 6 people, 6 dogs at any one time. And that's not, as far as I was concerned, that wouldn't change. That was never an issue. The issue is that we've got people who are probably charging for that, uninsured and walking dogs. And also is that 1% of the people own more than 4 dogs. So it would be logical to assume that is to protect professional and commercial dog walkers, we would limit it to 6 and then limit the public to 4 dogs as a limit. That was what I thought would be a reasonable suggestion. On top of that is that we could then look at how many they could walk on a lead, and without being too prescriptive, if you've got 6, 3 on, 3 off would be a reasonable amount, because you can walk one way, walk the others coming back. That seemed to me to be a reasonable thing. And so all of the responses that relate to you're affecting the professionals' business, you're affecting that. And to be fair, they thought it was an attack on their business, and it wasn't, because they then advised their customers that they were going to get increased costs, and quite rightly so. All the customers then reply in support of the business. So I will say that. The other thing is all the issues about dog walking or socialisation will not change if you've got 6 dogs. The comments relating to welfare issues won't change. A lot of the answers are readily available to the self. If I could just go to the consultation, point 14 in the consultation shows 52% did agree with the limitation on numbers. So that's the first thing. Point 20 shows that 22% of people who responded state they had specific instances of antisocial behaviour with multiple dogs. Point 27 in this consultation is a large number of responses, obviously from dog businesses, and that obviously cascading down to their own customers. 28 is there was 20% of replies from outside SKDC area, and I think it goes on to say something along the lines of is, we'll investigate this later. Okay. So, and also is, when we started talking about CPNWs and CPNs and PSPOs, we've had complete failure with our own failures to enforce the current PSPOs. So, we haven't been issued a dog fouling PSPO for at least 6 years, I understand, and all the rest of it. So, if we're not going to enforce, if we're not going to take this on board, why are we using those? Because they don't mean anything. The responses from the RSPCA was literally a copy and paste, which I've seen in loads of other consultations all across the country, and 80 other councils in England, I say, have adopted this as a way forward. The police response I would like to ask is, I saw that response before this consultation went out in an email. It was sent out, and I think Councillor Rayside was also aware of that email. That comment was made, so I'd be interested to know if the police have anything to say about that, because I went to the Chief Constable and asked him for his opinion, and I still wait. But I've got a Freedom of Information request, as I usually do, that Lincolnshire Police received 552 reports of dog attacks in 10 months between the 31st of December 2023 to 24. So somebody's out of line. Either he's out of line or he didn't read the consultation correctly. So I'd like to understand when that comment was made. So, yeah, I understand there was lots of issues with this, but I do think underlying that there are things that have come out which shows that we have got some reasons to take some of these things forward, even on numbers, if not on leads. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm grateful. I'm genuinely grateful for your feedback and analysis of the results of the consultation. I think there was a hand up over here. Was it Councillor Knowles or Councillor Dilks? No? Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought there was. We are only being asked to note the results of the public consultation and report. I don't know if you, Councillor Moran or Ms Kirkham, wish to come back to any of the points that Phil has raised. Alicia?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to. Just a couple, because there were quite a few, so I may have missed a few. But in terms of dog fouling and the PSPO for that, we go on intelligence-based, and we have asked for information so we can coordinate our patrols and do things in appropriate areas. So we do respond to complaints, and not all outcomes are through a fixed penalty notice. There may be other actions that are taken depending on where the dog is and the behaviour being exhibited. In terms of dog attacks and the increase in dog attacks, that there's complex information around that in terms of dog ownership. There's different types of breeds. There's an increase of dog ownership since COVID. It's multifaceted in terms of dog attacks, and whilst dogs on leads might be a mechanism for one form of control, it's not the only form of control, and that's why in that report it's listed all the powers that are existing. In some respects, in terms of dog control, if people are not controlling their dogs and residents know about that, they can report that in and we can investigate and take enforcement action under the community protection powers, but it's not a general restriction. And with the dog on leads public spaces protection order that we have, that's specific to the whole of the district, that is about it's by an authorised officer, so it's not you need to be able to have your dog on a lead at all times. It's by requirement from an authorised officer. In terms of the consultation responses, some of those where it was point 14 related to when they were asked further about how many numbers would you see reasonable. So, you know, there may be an interpretation of I will answer anyway. The initial question was how many would broadly support it, and the majority said no. The whole purpose of the consultation was also to identify would it be district-wide, or would it be a certain area, and there's no information to say a certain area, it was more broadly. So that's the comments, and I'm happy to, if I haven't answered anything or anything further, I'm happy to add to that.
Thank you for your comments. I do see the pie chart at point 12 of the consultation does say, do you think there is a need? 59% think there isn't a need, and then when you go to the kind of if there is a need, then what should the limit be? Is a slightly different question. Councillor Gadd did make a comment about PSPOs. I assume he's correct in saying that although we've got several PSPOs, we haven't enforced against any for 6 years. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's 6 years, but there's been no. I might have to ask Andrew behind me then if there's been anything recently, if that's okay. Andrew Beaver, he's the Community Safety Manager.
Mr. Beaver.
Can you hear me? Better. I'm not sure of the historic figures, but I know we've received a payment for a PSPO this morning for dog fouling, so that's one. The actual offence is not dog fouling, the offence is the breach of the PSPO. That's what you've given them a fixed penalty for, so that's the one. I'm not sure of historic numbers. I don't think it's a great number, if any, because generally it has to be witnessed by a patrolling officer, which is obviously difficult, but yeah.
My experience of Councillor Gadd quoting a figure is that it's generally correct, but I'm delighted that we've broken the duck and we've enforced one, first of many, I hope. I mean, I do realise that it is difficult, especially taking into account the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act means that you've virtually got to be standing next to the dog as it's fouling in order to summons anything on the owner with a yellow jacket saying dog fouling patrol. This is a real nub of local government, isn't it? This is where it's what none of us got into politics for, but what we all end up talking about at parish or district level. The dog fouling, but the dogs on leads is a different issue, and so it's not just for dog fouling PSPO. We have several other PSPOs for all kinds of things, and I don't believe we've enforced against those either. Although there are other ways of using the PSPO as a deterrent, and I'm sure that some people have acted differently because the law exists. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. I did fill in the online survey. Can't remember what I said now. And I used to have dogs, sadly no more. But the trouble is, when you have responsible dog owners, they are always responsible. And those who are not responsible dog owners will never be responsible, never take account for the actions of their dog. And that is what you are up against, I feel. It would be very hard to police this. But I think personally 2 dogs per person would be more than sufficient.
2? That's a relatively low number in terms of consultation. However, okay, yeah, 2 big ones or 4 little ones, I don't know. Councillor Dilks. Oh, Councillor Stokes.
Yeah, so walking down the high street, or in Westgate the other day, there was a couple with 3 dogs, big dogs. They had several bags in their hand. They tried to change the dog from one to the other. The dog got loose all over the road, acting like it was chaos. Anything could have happened. It seemed to me that the 3 was far too many, so I can see what you're saying when it's a big dog. But then there's the argument, small dogs, big dogs. On the basis that we are noting this, I'm happy to say, yeah, we're noting it on the grounds that we don't just kick it into long grass, because I do feel that to a large extent we should keep this open, because that, to me, that point 14 is 50-odd% that thinks something should happen, and it's just a little bit coloured towards being a no. So I would prefer to note it, but probably that we don't just kick it into the long grass, that we just keep it there as something to view in due course or in the future.
Thank you. And clearly it is something that draws a lot of attention, and worth doing the consultation, because we've had a lot of responses and a lot of coverage. So no one is saying that there isn't an issue with it. If and when we do something about it, we do need to enforce the PSPO. At this point, we've spoken about dogs enough, and I'm going to ask Cabinet to note the results of the public consultation and report. Are you happy to do so? I'll take that by assent. Thank you. Right, moving on to item 11, which is budget carry-forwards. Quite a dull report, I hope. Cabinet is asked to delegate authority to the Deputy Chief Executive and 151 officer, who is the same person, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance, the Cabinet Member for HR and the Cabinet Member for Economic Development, which are all the same person, to finalise for 24-25 budget carry-forwards for capital and revenue expenditure for the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. As part of the work preparing the outturn, one area that needs to be considered is budget carry-forwards. There are budgets that have been allocated for a financial year, but the anticipated date of expenditure has been delayed for whatever reason into the following financial year. This is normal. It happens each financial year following the review of the outturn and where specific projects or events cross over different financial years. They're usually presented to Cabinet as part of the outturn report, but as Cabinet won't be receiving that report until September, this would mean a longer delay in being able to access our own funds, which would have a consequent impact on service delivery. Therefore, it is proposed that delegated authority is given to Richard Wiles and me to finalise for 2024 budget carry-forwards for capital and revenue for both the General Fund and the HRA Fund. And I believe that the outturn report will be going to the Finance Committee and the Governance and Audit Committee, so there will be no shortage of scrutiny. So hopefully this can go through without a lot of discussion. Does anybody want to ask any questions or comment on this delegated authority proposal? Thank you for seconding it it. Virginia, all those in favour, please. Thank you, that's unanimous, which means that we can move on to item 12, use of pesticides on council land. Councillor Rees-Baker, would you please introduce this item?
Happy to, Leader. We want the right weed control in the right place, balancing aesthetics, safety, cost and biodiversity. We spray 237 sites across South Kesteven. 187 of these are HRA sites, with a maintenance specification set by multi-year contracts. But even across the rest of the sites, we do not use our herbicides and pesticides needlessly. In our parks, we only use a diluted spray on paths and hard surfaces. We no longer spray around mature trees or along flower beds. Where you see spraying on roadside verges, this is often work contracted by Lincolnshire County Council and outside of our control. I have seen the decline in insect populations in my lifetime, and I have seen the concerns about overuse of pesticides and herbicides. I've listened to diverse views of the members of the Joint Rural and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee, whose meeting in March 2024 provided the recommendations that form the basis of this report. I had detailed engagement with the sponsor of the original motion up until late 2024, and I spent a dozen hours reviewing case studies and best practice. I have also noticed that we have not received any significant complaints specific to glyphosate across the district, or how many weeds are in situ. We are a large rural district, and yet we use very, very little glyphosate, and that number is dwarfed by that used on even a single farm field. Residents are in fact more likely to have a farm as a neighbour than SKDC land. In our March debate, we did not settle on any efficient or cost-effective control method. We all agreed that we could not simply let the weeds grow unchecked, for reasons I'll not repeat here. So I considered how targeted our use is. For example, we don't use glyphosate around established trees, we do around newly planted trees, and that's advice from our expert tree officer. And this careful use actually enhances our biodiversity by increasing our canopy coverage as part of our tree and woodland strategy. Indeed, the recommendations in this report actually bring us into line with the Woodland Trust's approach to pesticides. We spent £490 on glyphosate in 23-24, and we didn't use all of what we bought. Any alternative, other than deciding not to control weeds, would have a significant cost implication. We would need between 2 and 4 additional staff, between 1 and 2 additional vehicles. Best case scenario, that would cost SKDC an additional £50,000 a year, every year. Now, there are very few council issues that are easy to decide. I have considered the committee's input carefully, as well as wider issues impacting the district. And even 2 years in, I still find it remarkable that compromise is such a dirty word in politics. Still, I have decided on a compromise, and that is contained in the recommendations in this report. I'd like to thank members for their input so far. The debate was outstanding. It improved members' understanding, and that is important to firm up our understanding of issues as well as a group position. The second recommendation is that we should continue to reduce glyphosate on SKDC managed land, where it is safe to do so, where there are no health and safety concerns, and where it does not significantly harm the attractiveness of an area. And finally, to review the Council's use of glyphosate following an anticipated government update due by December. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm grateful. We have had a joint cross-party question sent to us from Councillors Vanessa Smith and Councillor Ben Green, which I promised to read out. As members of this council who have serious concerns about our impact on the natural environment, who doesn't, we would like to see this council minimise its use of glyphosate as far as possible. At the Joint Environment and Rural OSC earlier this year, it was agreed that there would be a recommendation put to Cabinet not only to reduce use of glyphosate, but also to look towards identifying trial sites that did not use pesticides or herbicides, and B, launch a public consultation on the use of pesticides on council-owned land by including town and parish councils in the consultation. These two final points are not clearly included in the recommendations to Cabinet today. In order to uphold the democratic process and the function of the OSC, we believe it is important that these 2 points are properly considered. While we realise that council-managed land only accounts for a fraction of the land across the district, we believe it is important to lead by example and inspire residents who may consequently reconsider the appropriateness of their own pesticide use, something that is damaging to the environment and human health. I think, Councillor Rees, you've seen the questions, you've seen my initial responses to the questions, you've seen the responses to the questions. So the second point about a public consultation on the use of pesticides, I think at this point, when we know that the government is going to make some kind of decision in favour or against glyphosate later in the year, and also given that we are already this summer consulting on the local plan and engaging on the local government reorganisation, we don't want to create consultation fatigue. And also, as I mentioned with local government reorganisation earlier, it's not a simple do you like herbicides or not. It's a lot of people, I dare say even in this room, don't probably know the difference between a herbicide and a pesticide, let alone the relative merits of glyphosate. So, is it glyphosate? Glyphosate, I can't even say the word, glyphosate, and therefore, personally, I think it is the wrong time for a consultation. On the first one, look towards identifying trial sites that do not use pesticides or herbicides. I don't know of any member that has put forward a specific proposed site for a trial not using pesticides or herbicides. So I ask you, Councillor Rees, do you know of any specific sites that have been put forward, or do you know whether or not officers have looked for such sites?
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. We have reviewed all of our usage, and where the sites are that are identifiable within residential areas, these are often in HRA managed properties, the green spaces outside of those. And as Karen Whitfield made very clear in the meeting, the specification for how those areas are maintained are set out by a multi-year contract, which we can't just unilaterally tear up, throw into the bin, and have a little experiment on it. The executive decision, when I considered that recommendation, was put through the lens of every single decision I've ever made in this council, and I think I've been consistent. We are custodians of the ratepayers' money. And at the first point of call, we have to consider, is the action we're about to take going to spend money needlessly? If we were to take on a consultation cost, run a 6-week consultation, analyse the results, report back, consider what action we're going to take, only for the government 3 weeks later to say, actually, we're banning it anyway, that would have been an improper use of ratepayers' money. I am not in this report precluding any consultation. I am not precluding the reduction in pesticide use. It's there in black and white. What we're saying is it would be prudent to await government instruction on whether this is going to be banned anyway, as it already has been in the EU. The comments about inspiring others to reduce their own use, that this particular chemical is already precluded for personal home consumption anyway. So us no longer using it doesn't set the standard for homes across South Kesteven, because the Roundup that you buy in your garden centre is not the Roundup that we purchase as a larger organisation with a licence exemption. We want to keep driving this cost down. We want to keep driving this usage down. But when we're already sitting at £490 for a year, and I will emphasise, we didn't use all of it, so we can probably put that down as under £400 in a year. We're already using this in such a targeted fashion. I'm unclear where we could continue to maintain the standards that our residents expect without significant investment. We will report back to the Joint Committee in December, and there will be an opportunity for all interested parties to make these comments to me, seeing the whites of my eyes again, and it might be, if we see a licence extension, which are typically given as a 15-year extension, it might be prudent at that point to launch a consultation and consider our further usage. But at this point, I don't think it's a prudent use of ratepayers' money.
Gotcha. Thank you. Councillor Dilks.
Thank you, Leader. I fully support the report that we've got. I think it's gone round the houses far enough, frankly. But when I look at the report, you know, we're going to continue to review. I note that the report you read out from, or the statement from two councillors, called for this stuff to be minimised as far as possible. And I note that the recommendation is to agree that the council should continue with the strategy of reducing its use on land where it's safe to do so, and not present a health and safety concern or impact on the aesthetics of an area. So we are doing what you know, colleagues are really asking us to do. And I do take the point that, you know, across, you know, what are we, 365 square miles of, you know, mainly rural countryside, and with the 4 towns, you know, we spend 400 quid a year on it. I also know that, as colleagues have not mentioned today, but, you know, we know that, don't we, that a number of councils have banned this stuff, and then after a very short time they've been overwhelmed with weeds, Japanese hogweed and all the rest of it, and they've had to bring it back in. So I really support the careful, controlled, licensed use of this stuff to keep South Kesteven the way we want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cleaver.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank Councillor Baker for the thorough work he's done on this. I know he spent a lot of time in researching this issue and trying to make sure that we come out with the best result. And thank you to you for that. I will just add, it is a risk of stating the obvious, carrying out a public consultation on how we spend just £500 a year is the sort of action that brings local councils into disrepute, and we shouldn't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dilks, you want to come back?
You're very kind allowing me to come back. I meant to ask, my final point was, I think Councillor Baker said, and please clarify if I've got it wrong, did you say that our approach is in line with the Woodland Trust, the Grantham-based tree protection organisation? We are in line with the Woodland Trust.
Thank you for that. So I do welcome councillors coming forward with good ideas which are environmentally sound, which are to the benefit of residents across the district, whether or not they cost a lot of money or not. We want what's best for the residents, so we're quite happy to review them. And I'm grateful that this has come forward. Not every issue has to come through full council and 16 committees to get to cabinet. So we do want to engage with councillors informally as well as formally. Having said all that, though, we haven't let the grass grow under our feet, and we're not going to kick this into the long grass. And I won't set Councillor Cleaver off with any other grass-related, weed-related puns. But we've got the recommendations in front of us. Would anyone like to second them? Thank you, Councillor Dilks. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. So thank you for that, and thank you to Ben and Vanessa for engaging with us. We move on to a Cabinet Forward Plan, a lively document that is subject to change at any given moment, but the current iteration is in front of you. Chief Executive, would you like to... You have no comments, no changes at the moment, so it is as put in front of you. Does anyone want to comment on the content of the Forward Plan at this stage? If not, then I'll consider it as noted, and I'll go back to my original agenda. We go to open questions from councillors. Thank you, councillors, 6 of you that have made it to the end of the meeting, and I'm really grateful for your input so far. Do we have any questions from councillors? Councillor Selby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Leader. I'd like to ask a question through the Chair to the portfolio holder for engagement and also for property, which I believe is Richard, Councillor Richard Cleaver. I'd like to ask you, Richard, I'd like to challenge you to hire a wheelchair or borrow one or a motorised one and go to the Mayor's Stadium and find out how accessible the stadium is and to report back to us. And if you could go on a rainy day, that would be even better, and try and find a dry place in which to position a wheelchair. And whilst you're there, would you take note of the dilapidated state of our showcase stadium and let us know whether you think that should be part of our audacious ideas for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Councillor Cleaver.
Thank you very much, Councillor Selby, for bringing this to my attention. I'm very happy to pick the issue up and deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to the feedback. Do we have any other questions from any other councillors? Councillor Rayside.
I know we spent a long time on the dog on lead and the PSPOs, but I wanted you to get through your meeting. So in reflection of what Councillor Stokes mentioned, instead of us kicking it down the road and taking things into consideration moving forward, either you, Councillor Moran, or Aisha can answer. In respect to the dogs on lead, are there any best practices from other councils that can be adopted or adapted locally to make sure that we remain proactive and not reactive in protecting the public from the very few who want too many dogs at any given time, or walk dogs that are not manageable, and being consistent with those who identified that there were issues?
Thank you for your question. Should I go to Aisha first or Councillor Moran?
Yeah, actually, I didn't say it out loud with the microphone on, but I did lean over to Aisha and say, can we diary this for a year's time? The plan would be that in the interim, we keep a note of any instances where a multitude of dogs on one lead or, 2 leads or whatever has led to any incidents. So we're not kicking it into the long grass, but let's give it a year and just see where we are on numbers, on incidents, on that. That would be my suggestion. But Aisha hasn't had the opportunity to come back to me and say, yes, of course, or over your dead body.
I hope she wouldn't say that. Aisha, would you like to say that?
No, I wouldn't. I'd be happy to accept that proposal to go forward with that. And also, we will do targeted response to complaints that we receive. So if there's a regular person that walks a dog and causing a nuisance or problems, if we feed that back into the team, we have the community protection notice that we can serve, which is a similar one to the PSPO in that you can do a fixed penalty. So there's already provisions within the legislation to take action. So we will report back anything we have in a year's time.
Thanks. So I think it's true to say that not all the problems related to dogs, not all the dogs related to problems, not all the problems related to dogs are related to too many dogs on leads. There are other issues with dogs not on leads, not under control. One person can have one dog on or off a lead and it be out of control and cause other people a nuisance. I think, I'm using my telepathy, but I think a sense of enforcement, education and information increased would be welcome. I mean, I think you wouldn't need to take many actions against dog owners for whatever misdemeanour they have, whether it's barking at night, biting at day, or doing other things in public open spaces. To enforce against that would be very welcome. So I don't know if anybody else wants to come back on that at all. First of all, Councillor Rayside and then Councillor Gadd.
Thank you, Councillor, because that was going to be my second question to you. If we can, during that year, do more communications, education, etc. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Gadd.
Just to back up what you were saying there, I wasn't going to use it, but why not? Saturday morning goes out on my normal walking route, goes up 5th Avenue, onto Woodland Trust, and there are a bunch of people doing wild camping there, who was attacked by 3 dogs. Me. One round my ankles, the other 2 were just behind the barriers in the education area. If not, one was trying to get over the top. I had to freeze to the spot. So it's still happening. And it was reported to the police, 11205 072025, it's a report number. So I went there and so that was done on Saturday morning. So, and that's happening a lot in our ward, particularly the Harrowby ward and the Belmont ward, and we have real serious concerns. If Councillor Noon was here today, I think you would be listening to him a lot more than you are me.
Thank you for that. The Cabinet Member wants to come back.
Yeah, just on this, the big problem is, as somebody said, that the problems with dogs are a multitude of problems with dogs. And at the moment, enforcement of those laws that are established are very difficult to achieve by the police or whatever authorities look after dogs. And the problems we've talked about are not solved in a simple way. They're not solved with banning 6 dogs on a thing. We all know, perhaps, of a multiple number of dogs being walked into town, absolutely perfect in the control, absolutely no problem to anybody. And we all know there's one dog, comes out and gets out of its garden and attacks other dogs and attacks people and so on and so forth. So the problem with dogs is a multitude of things, and to try and find appropriate legislation is difficult, but then to try and find appropriate solutions for us which will satisfy the problem and solve the problem without interfering with people who are quite fairly and properly looking after their dogs is extremely difficult. So I wouldn't want us to rush into any solutions of what we think we might do, which might not solve the problem and exacerbate the problem elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Thank you all for your comments. Councillor Cleaver, did you want to say another?
Just to add, I think I'd be quite happy to investigate whether we can do some joint publicity campaigns with the police as to, along the lines of walk your dogs responsibly. It would seem an appropriate thing to do.
Okay. And we will have a look at this next year, if not sooner. That's great. Right. Any more questions on any more issues? If not, I will declare this meeting closed.